Hello and greetings from Michigan. My name is Mike Tobias. I'm coordinator for the Michigan Coalition to Reduce Underage Drinking, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you today for about 30 minutes. Just if you've never been to Michigan, we have a great state, and I encourage you to come out and visit us. Um, I've never been to Oregon, but with any luck, I'll get there, maybe go salmon fishing. But I hear it's a great state too. Um, but the Michigan Coalition to Reduce Underage Drinking was established in 1996, and this was in response to the Robert Wood Johnson grants that were being given out. And although Michigan didn't get a grant, all the partners came together and formed the group, and then now here we are 25 years later. So I've been with the organization in some capacity for over 20 years, and the last 11 years I've been the coordinator for the Michigan Coalition to Reduce Underage Drinking. Here's just a brief overview of some of the things we'll be talking about today. And this slide just talks about some of the things that kind of guide the work that we do in Michigan. And so I'm sure probably a lot of you are familiar with these resources, but these are hyperlinked. If you're not familiar, you can click on those links and get more information about them. But the next few slides will talk a little bit more about the community guide. So I'm not going to read this to you, but you can take a look at it. And there's a summary of the community guide recommendations that we always give to any policymaker that I meet with. I'm usually given a summary of these community guides to give them an idea of how we operate. And then inevitably they usually ask, well, so what do you do? Do you do presentations for schools? And I say, no, not really. And try to explain to them, again, why we're meeting, talk about these policy issues. The guide has 21 different topics last time, and the two that I focus on the most are the excessive alcohol consumption and motor vehicle injury. But some of you may do other work in other areas, so it's a really good resource for folks to be aware of, and I really encourage you to check it out. So here are some of the recommendations from the community guide. These are the things that they've kind of looked at that really reduce excessive alcohol consumption. You'll see there's 4 items there that they have strong evidence to support these strategies and policies and things. And then there's sufficient evidence on the other 3. Here's a kind of the rankings of the prevalence and intensity of binge drinking among U.S. adults. And you'll see that I've got a handful of states in there. As far as prevalence of binge drinking, you see North Dakota's ranks number 1, and Tennessee is number 50, and then you see Alaska, Michigan, and Oregon in between there. And the reason I chose Alaska and Oregon is I'll be on a live panel with the folks from Alaska and Oregon on July 19th, so we hope that you join us for that. And then you can see the intensity of binge drinking. Again, looks like Arkansas is 1. And then you've got Alaska, Michigan, and Oregon. And then you've got Washington and Washington, D.C. tied for 50. And I just put the highest and lowest in there to give you some perspective of where the other states ranks. So again, 24.9% down to 10.9% on binge drinking prevalence. But then the intensity of drinks, Arkansas at 8.3, and then the other groups there at 6.2. So a little bit about Michigan consumption trends. This is per capita in gallons, and this is going from the time range of 2010 until 2019 for those 10 years. And so you can see that beer is declining probably. It's the only one that's declining is beer. And then wine, spirits, and mixed spirit drinks is increasing. So now here are some of the current issues that we're dealing with in Michigan. And most of these have been ongoing issues for a little while, I guess with the exception of the last 2. But extending alcohol sales to 4 a.m. Right now, current closing time in Michigan is 2 a.m. We hope that it stays that way. But there's been many efforts the last 6 or 7, probably 12 to 14 years, 6 or 7 straight legislative sessions to expand the sales to 4 a.m. There's been many different versions of the bills over the years. The most current version is probably in some ways one of the worst. I think it's a $250 permit, but there's no other kinds of special. In the past, there's been security requirements and a higher fee, and some of that money going to law enforcement in the community. But this is a little bit more wide open. It's local opt-in, so local governmental units would have to approve it. But of course, if some local government does and others don't, we feel it'll kind of create like some magnets, and people from the region will just kind of flock to those places, and therefore you might actually see more increased drinking and driving. They framed the issue in the context of COVID because the on-premise licenses have been struggling so much that they want to, as a way to get more people in the doors because we have longer time to do that. We've been at reduced capacities for a while. We might be at full capacity now, but that's kind of the way they frame the issue. But another big challenge they have is finding workers also. So I really think you're going to have trouble finding workers that are going to want to stay until 4:35 a.m. now. But this passed in about March, passed the House 61 to 47. And so the vote, there's some success there. The vote was much closer than what the vote was in December. In December, the vote was 77 to 27 in the House, and then it kind of stalled out or they ran out of time, and so the Senate wasn't able to take it up. But the sponsor reintroduced that bill in February of this year, and they kind of fast-tracked it, passed the House in mid-March or so. But again, it's kind of stalled out on the Senate side. It's in the Senate Regulatory Reform Committee meeting. So we're not exactly sure why, but we're just glad to see that it's kind of slowed down a little bit. We have another set of bills that are going to keep our BAC level at 0.08. Michigan, I believe, is the only state in the country that has a sunset under 0.08 BAC level. So if the legislature doesn't take any action, it'll revert back to 0.10. Obviously, we don't want to see that. I'm sure somebody recall that the National Traffic Safety Board made some recommendations back in 2012 or 13 that all states should lower their BACs to 0.08. Utah was the first state in the country to do that a couple of years ago. I believe New York has a pending bill right now. This bill was introduced last legislative session, but it didn't go anywhere. But the sponsor who is sponsoring bills to keep the BAC at 0.08, his strategy is let's pass the bills that will keep it at 0.08, and after that goes through, then I believe he's going to introduce another bill that would lower it to 0.05. And so we know it's going to be a tough lift, but we think it's important that he keeps doing this, get more awareness out there, and we'll see. The next item is again reintroduced. The sponsor that wants to lower the seller's age of alcohol from 18 to 17. They did have a hearing on it at the House Regulatory Reform Committee meeting recently, and it appeared there's a lot of support for it at the committee level, but they haven't brought it back to report it out of committee yet. But again, that's something we're watching and concerned about. From looking at alcohol policy information systems, I believe the majority of states are 18 or older to sell alcohol. And of course, this is probably something I believe Oregon has a thriving craft industry, and we do too in Michigan. There's been a lot of increase in craft breweries, distilleries, and wineries. According to the Michigan Brewers Guild, Michigan has over 300 breweries, and Michigan ranks 5th in breweries, microbreweries, and brew pubs. And then the number of craft distilleries throughout Michigan is growing at a rapid pace. That's from the website from the Michigan Craft Distillers Association. We have a lot of wineries as well. Then, of course, there's been a lot of legislation designed to help the bars and restaurants during the pandemic. And so those are just two examples of some of the things they've done. But they've passed, bills to help the on-premise folks. The last two in July, just before the 4th last year, the legislature was scrambling to pass these social drinking districts and these cocktails to go and expanding delivery a little bit in Michigan. So of course we didn't want to see that, but like most places, I believe, most states, I believe, have these, or it seems like they do, because I see a lot of articles of these social districts. So we have that now, and there was a bill that was just introduced and kind of fast-tracked that would make these permanent. They were sunsetted for December 31st of 2024, December 31st of 2025, and seeing those long sunsets, we felt pretty confident they're going to probably try to make these permanent, but we didn't necessarily anticipate that they were going to make them permanent so quickly. It was introduced and assigned to the Senate Regulatory Reform Committee meeting, but I believe it was discharged. Like I never saw it on the agenda for the Senate Regulatory Reform. Then the next thing I know, it's the Senate voted on it, passed to the House voted on it. So, I don't believe it's law yet, but it's really fast-tracked, made its way to the legislature, I believe. Again, we never saw it on the agenda, so we're, kind of disappointed to see that. I'm sure they didn't do anything against the rules, but so I don't know. I guess I have to look into why it was discharged from committee, or why, when they decided to do that. But it just seems like it was not very transparent, the process. We have some, we've been dealing with what we call non-traditional liquor licenses in Michigan. It seems like, and this has probably been going on for, I don't know, 10 years, quite a while, but it just seems like it just keeps going. But we're seeing a lot of new, different kinds of places that want to get into selling alcohol. And so we're seeing more of these, what we call non-traditional places. Probably hair salons would go on there too, but more fast food restaurants, painting with a twist, dog parks, dollar stores, coffee shops, even a Bed Bath and Beyond. Some of those stores have had some, off-premise sales. And then zoos and ice cream shops. We've had some zoos. We have zoos right now currently that are licensed. I'm not sure how many, but I don't believe there's too many zoos that are licensed. But in the last couple of months, a zoo outside of Battle Creek, or within Battle Creek, I believe, applied for a liquor license, and the Liquor Control Commission, in their wisdom, denied it, and we were pleased to see that. And then also, the zoo did come back on appeal, and then the Liquor Control Commission did grant them some liquor licenses, but there was more regulation on those places. And so the zoo just wanted to be able to people to buy drinks and just kind of walk around the zoo with their drinks. They wanted like a roaming cart that would sell drinks, like at a like a baseball game where somebody's selling you beer, going up and down the aisles. They wanted somebody to push a cart throughout the zoo selling alcohol. Well, the commission granted the liquor licenses to the restaurants, but I believe stipulated that they have to stay at the restaurant site and cannot circulate throughout the zoo. So that was kind of a partial victory. And the commissioners spoke about hearing from the prevention community about our concerns. And some of our concerns were, we just think that there needs to be some alcohol-free places. If children, all they see is places where people are drinking, what message does that send? We see zoos as a place that's more family-friendly and kid-friendly. And again, as a person in long-term recovery, I think it's important to have some alcohol-free places. Not necessarily that I'm going to be tempted to drink, but I can't say that other people who are struggling with addiction won't be tempted to drink, or in early recovery, that sort of thing. So they did hear our concerns, and they, initially denied the liquor license, but ended up giving them a liquor license. But I'll just say that the Liquor Control Commission, this commission right now, is much better balanced, looking at our public health issues than I'd say previous commissions. And so we're very, glad that we have Chairman Gagliardi kind of leading the effort there. We also have a liaison. One of the administrative commissioners is now a liaison to our organization, Geraldine Lasher. So we're very happy to have her as a liaison. So we probably have the best relationship we have with the Liquor Control Commission right now. In the 15, 20 years I've been kind of following them. The ice cream shop issue. We've had two ice cream shops in the last couple of months come before the commission for asking for a liquor license, and the commission denied both of them. At least the first place denied for sure. Have not seen that come back on appeal. The second place, which was just about 2 weeks ago, I believe they denied it, or if they didn't deny it, they held it because they had a lot of concerns. So we're glad to see the commission kind of vetting these issues carefully. These next couple slides talk about our MCRUD advocacy plan, and they're busy slides, but hopefully you can see them okay on your screen. But this is our current MLCC advocacy plan, so working with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. By statute, the Liquor Control Commission has to have these semi-annual hearings. And so it's typically in March, so one was on March 18th, and then one is coming up on Wednesday, September 22nd. And so our goal was to try to identify 12 people to kind of individuals or organizations to be represented there and to give public comments. And so we got a lot of people there at the commission meeting, and it's been easier to participate in these things because it's remote now due to COVID. They just went back to face-to-face meetings, but they are keeping the remote option, which we're very glad, because it's difficult for some people to travel to where these are. But anyhow, we had 12, our goal is 12, and we had about 25 folks that attended the March hearing. And I think about 7 gave public comment, so we didn't quite get the public comment goal, but we had a lot of people attend it, and I'm hoping that those people who attended the first time will feel more comfortable giving comment in September. So over here under kind of column 2, each Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30, the Liquor Control Commission has these administrative licensing meetings, and they typically approve or deny liquor licenses. And so I'll try to monitor those best I can. These are where I've discovered those issues about the zoo, about the ice cream shops, Total Wine. They had a special hearing about Total Wine coming into Michigan. People had a lot of concerns about that. But it's at these meetings where I hear about some of these things, and these administrative licensing meetings, they always have a public comment time at the end of the meeting. And so whenever if the commissioners raise an issue that they're concerned about, looking at some of the public health and safety issues that we're concerned about, like they might say, I'm a little concerned about giving liquor licenses out to an ice cream shop. I always jump on for public comment to try to reinforce that and say, yes, since Mike Tobias, MCRUD coordinator, I'm concerned about giving out liquor licenses to ice cream shops as well. Thank you for weighing this issue carefully, and so forth. But try to reinforce what they're saying. But anyways, Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can see we have a handful of people, Kathy and Paige and Barry and Paige, who are going to help monitor these meetings because I can't always make them, and then kind of report back. And then the appeals hearings, this is when there's been a denial of a liquor license or somebody's upset with the violation they received. They can appeal it, but these are on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. And again, you can see the folks that help monitor those meetings. There's no public comment for these issues, but it really, I believe, listening to these hearings gives you a better understanding of the rules and regulations. And also, I think you get a sense of the current commission's commitment to public health and safety, because they do vet these issues carefully. They do want to make sure that somebody has a good plan in place if they're going to rescind a decision about a revocation or suspension or something like that. And then 4 is just kind of like, again, from those administrative licensing meetings, that's where we're going to probably find a lot of different issues that are going to pop up, because they also they give a lot of updates at the administrative licensing meetings. And so again, there might be opportunities for us to advocate for something that comes up with the Liquor Control Commission. Like I said, this next slide is a little bit busier. This deals with more of the legislature. And so on the left-hand side, you can see this is our plan. And I'll say this is the first year we've actually tried to put something down in writing for the most part. We've had, well, I guess we've had other things right, but this is just kind of a different format that we're going to. And again, we're trying to create opportunities for community coalition leaders to participate in the process. And so we offer a lot of things. But anyhow, a bill's introduced. We would like to identify an advocate in the sponsor's district and have that advocate contact the sponsor to get more information about the bill, what it's about, why it was introduced. Make sure they understand it, because it's not always clear to me when I read a bill what they're actually trying to do. So oftentimes I'll contact the sponsor of the office and try to find out exactly what they're doing. And then the advocate hopefully reports back via email, or we have a monthly alcohol policy issue meeting And so they can report back at that meeting to discuss whatever bill it is. We're going to monitor it, determine next steps. Then we try to identify people that can lobby, take positions, testify, those sorts of things. So we have a handful of people there. And there's more than this the name that comes on there. But we identified these people through a short survey, Google Form survey. And I really need to send out that Google Form survey to our broader contact list to see if we can identify more people to help participate in this process. These next, right here is the House Regulatory Reform Committee meeting, and right here is the Senate Regulatory Reform Committee meeting. And both of these meet on Tuesdays. Typically the House meets about 10 or 10:30, kind of changes here and there, and the Senate usually meets about 3 p.m. And you can see the chairmans of these and the committee members. And then in red, you see those are the names of some advocates in those districts or that serve those districts. And so we're encouraging these folks, these community coalition leaders primarily, to talk with their senators and representatives about all these issues that we just talked about before, about alcohol taxes, BAC, the concerns about going to 4 a.m., concerns with social districts and cocktails to go and expanding delivery and some of those things. But we have an Excel file, and we have 110 House districts and 38 Senate districts, and we're trying to identify advocates in all those districts. And we probably know of people in those districts, but it's trying to get them to get involved in the process and understand that it's important to meet with their lawmakers on a regular basis to talk about these things, because we just don't have much standing really in the legislature. I think they just kind of see me or a few of us as just kind of people that, we're always speaking out against something that they want to do. So we just need broader people and more people to talk with their lawmakers about these issues. So again, that's what we're kind of doing on the right-hand side, identify people to contact lawmakers on a regular basis regarding these issues. And then, some people might make some good messengers or people that would be willing to contact their lawmakers would be coalition coordinators, chairs. I think there are 12 sectors. If you have a chief of police who's very involved or a pastor that's very involved, then, maybe they would make a better messenger than you. But again, you can see the folks in red, people in recovery, telling their stories could be very helpful. But again, we're just encouraging people to meet with their lawmakers, build that relationship. It's not a one and done kind of a thing. We want it throughout the 2 years, talking with them about these issues. So some different challenges of doing policy work that I'm guessing some of you can probably relate to as well. But this, people are always worried about getting in trouble, crossing over the line to lobbying and that sort of thing. And yes, I believe they should be concerned a little bit about it, but I think we worry way too much about getting in trouble and crossing over the line. So I don't know how to get around that. We've had numerous, trainings on lobbying, difference between lobbying and advocacy and education. I mean, just numerous, I've probably had 100 hours of that topic, and I think it's always going to be a little gray. So we always encourage people to, whoever you report to, you should have that conversation with that person, because we've also had situations where a funder, we argued back and forth on whether or not what we were doing was lobbying or advocacy. And in the end, the funders kind of said, we don't care whether it's lobbying or advocacy. We don't want you doing this work. And so then we had to make a decision on, do we back away from this initiative or not? And in that situation, we had to. We felt it was in our best interest to back away, since they were providing probably 95% of our funding. But again, we were convinced that it wasn't lobbying necessarily, but it didn't really matter. But this is always an issue. We're not very light. It's hard for us to be fluid and light and move quickly, because we have a lot of different issues we're dealing with. And so they don't have to post legislative meetings very early in advance. So you don't know what's on the agenda until the last minute in some cases. So they only have to give 18 hours of notice. These meetings, like I said, are on Tuesday, so usually I'm kind of watching it on Monday. Sometimes I'll think if it's a really important issue I'm watching, I'll look on the weekend to try and see if it's there. But we just don't know when the bill's coming up on the agenda. Again, we don't have really good relationships with the chairs of these committees, so they're not too helpful for us. And then sometimes we have disagreements within our own organization about, again, what we should best way to proceed. Is this letter to the editor cross over the line to lobbying? Are you doing grassroots lobbying now? And so some of those issues come up and you have to resolve those. And it's hard enough to do this work, let alone to have to kind of go back and forth with your own organization, your coalition about what the best way to proceed is. Again, we're not very advanced in getting our message out, so we've been trying to find somebody that's better at social media to try and leverage that. But really just kind of sending out an email alert is kind of the most frequent way that we try to contact people and mobilize people. And that, and just actually picking up the phone and calling them if it's somebody that's an advocate in a committee member's district. I think nothing beats getting on the phone and calling these folks, say, hey, please contact your senator. This bill is before them right now at committee. We're trying to stop this right now. And usually, if you take the time to call people, they'll do it. It just takes more time. And again, we're managing multiple things. Alcohol is very socially acceptable, so that's always an issue. There's always other drugs that get a lot more attention than I'm sure you're aware of. This comment, I can't just live up there. I can't stay up there. This one of my colleagues just said that to me in the last couple of weeks about some bills that were coming up on agenda again. He's like, he lives about a good hour away to Lansing. And he's not very tech savvy because you can actually right now, I believe you can still testify remotely. So it's been the last year and a half, it's been easier than ever to testify because you have that remote option as long as you're comfortable with the technology. But his point's well taken. Just there's so many things coming at us all the time. From something that Cassie Torrey did a presentation in Michigan, she said that Michigan's one of those. We have a lot of legislation that goes through, I guess, relative to other states on alcohol. I can't remember how you measure that, but we do have a lot of things coming at us. Again, we're mostly playing defense. It's hard to play offense. It's hard to get bills introduced that you want to see happen when you're always trying to address kind of these bills out there that are going to expand access and availability. The fact that I have 4 different funders, I got 4 different kind of pots of money that I answer to. And so it's not all just, when I was hired in 2010, I was a MCRUD coordinator full time. And now it's pieced out into 4 different funders. I have different responsibilities. So that makes it very difficult for me to help coordinate and mobilize and do this work. Here are some tools and resources to engage community coalition meetings, our coalition leaders. Like I said, we have monthly alcohol policy issue meetings. Sometimes we have special meetings to talk about issues of concern like 4 a.m. sales, like a zoo getting a liquor license, those kind of things. I do a lot of one-to-one meetings with people about, trying to engage them, to contact their lawmakers, or call them about specific or issues. We offer interactive dialogue calls on different topics. So those are the 3 topics we've had so far. Social host laws, Michigan's strategic plan to reduce underage drinking, social districts and cocktails to go. Michigan's fortunate, we're one of a handful of states that has an alcohol epidemiologist, and they've created some different fact sheets that kind of correspond to some of the legislation. So we have, the hours of sales brief, blood alcohol concentration, alcohol license quota system, and taxes. And those are on our website. We've done a brief survey on taxes in the past, and we asked likely voters whether they support going to a 0.05 BAC. Unfortunately, the support for that was pretty low, about 32%. Taxes has always been a majority, 60% or so. Then we also did a MCRUD lawmaker survey, and we didn't have a lot of participation, but we got a lot of good information. And so youth contacted their state lawmakers and talked to them about taxes and BAC and closing time, some of those things. And through those conversations, we were able to identify lawmakers that support or oppose these things. Again, now we want those same youth and coalitions to go back to the lawmakers to have further conversations about, okay, I see that you support lowering the BAC to 0.05. Are you willing to be a co-sponsor or introduce legislation? So we feel really good about a lot of information was garnered from that survey. We plan to replicate it and do it again and get more people involved. Just a quick special thanks to Jason and Liv. They're somehow connected to the conference. Liv did a really great job on helping me prepare for the presentation and helping with deadlines. And Jason was the initial contact that kind of gave me an understanding of the conference, about what they're doing. So thanks to them. Mary Franks is our alcohol epidemiologist. She helped prepare some of those slides in the beginning on the state rankings and some of that information. And then MJ is an intern with Prevention Network and the Michigan Coalition to Reduce Underage Drinking, and he also helped assist pulling this information together. But thank you. There's my contact information. I hope you join us on July 19th for the live panel, and I guess I'll see you later.